aware, we made a decision to make a coaching change. First, I'd like to thank Kurt Rambis, who's spent 4 years with the Knicks organization and is a good basketball coach and a great person, and we thank him for everything that he did for this organization. Jeff has been great to work with over the last 2 years. He's done a lot for the organization, and we really thank him for his dedication. It's been a pleasure getting to know him and work with him. But as we laid out last summer, Scott and I and Jeff, and what our plans were for the organization in terms of establishing an identity for the Knicks and a certain style of play and a defensive culture within the team, and a sense of accountability within the players and everyone in the organization. We went through a process of sort of evaluating where we were on 10-game increments through the course of the season. And as we got towards the end, Scott and I made a decision that we just felt like it was, given how the season was progressing, and we progressed in some areas, but we felt we were lacking in others. We came to the conclusion that it was the time for sort of a new voice with our locker room, a new presence with our players. And we just looked at this as we look out, as we have a plan for what this team should look like over the next 3 years or so. We just thought this was an opportunity where we thought it was the right time to make a change. Scott?
Yeah, no, I just first want to add, thank Jeff Hornacek for all of his hard work and dedication here. He's a class act. It's a pleasure to get to work with him this year, and I'm very confident that wherever he lands on his next opportunity, he's a good basketball man, good basketball mind, and he will land on his feet and have a chance to be successful. But I want to thank him for all that he did in terms of trying to contribute to this team this season that I was here with him. I also want to thank Kurt Rambis in the same vein for his hard work and the experience that he brought to the table here. And as Steve mentioned, we obviously thought it was just important and the timing was right to get a new voice, a new presence in this locker room to help lead our vision for this team moving forward. And we're in the early stages of a building process for this team and organization. And again, the timing we believe was right for this. And we're going to be looking forward to moving ahead and getting the team that we want that we've envisioned in putting this plan together to start to build and grow from here on out.
We're going to open up for questions.
Steve and Scott, what is the plan that you have over the next 3 years? Because of course, Knicks fans want to win now. So what is the plan?
Well, our plan, we laid out the plan last summer. And this is a plan that we want to win too, but we want to win in a way that's sustainable. And we want to build it organically through the organization. When it's opportunistic, in our view, a few years from now, where maybe we can add free agents, but we first need to establish who we are as an organization, what we stand for, a defensive sense of accountability for our team, add athleticism to our team, but build an organization and build a culture within the organization that when you play against the Knicks or you come into the Knicks organization, that we stand for something. And it's something that we build, and unlike, many times in the past where you're constantly trying to hit home runs and striking out, that this is an opportunity for us to build something from the ground up and something that we think is sustainable in terms of winning.
And I would just add, I think when you're talking about building a successful team that is sustainable, the patience is required, and that you don't skip steps. There's a lot of hard work and adversity that goes into building a successful basketball team in the NBA. There are no quick fixes, and you don't see them around. And so I know that has been tried a number of times here in the past, but I think it's important that we as an organization, and Steve and I as leaders in the front office, remain disciplined to that, and that's what we're going to do.
What are you looking for in a new candidate, in the new coach? What are the traits that you're going to be looking for?
Well, I think we're going to be looking for a coach, obviously, that can not only can hold players accountable, hold his coaching staff accountable, a guy who is not only a good basketball mind, but a very skilled communicator, an effective leader, a guy who can connect very well with today's players, and who is equally aligned in terms of wanting to be a very strong defensive-minded team that would not only resonate with the plan that we want, but I think will resonate with a lot of New Yorkers, because I think the Knicks teams of yesteryear were those tough-minded defensive teams that competed each and every night.
How do you build a roster that allows a coach to be here for a period of time? Because you've had 11 coaches since 2001, so how do you get to the point where you give a guy a chance to do it over a multitude of years?
I think it's with the infusion of patience, and with patience and with a plan gives you an opportunity to have some time to see it develop.
Did you guys feel that Jeff didn't hold guys accountable? Because you mentioned that kind of twice. Was that one of the shortcomings?
But look, the evaluation of Jeff went over an 82-game period. And we evaluated everything from practices to games to ability to connect with guys, and I think we need to be better in that area. I think there can be some improvement, but it all doesn't lay at Jeff's feet either. But I think that's something that we can be better at as an organization. That's an expectation that we have, obviously, of our next coach and what we have of ourselves as well.
When you mention the next coach, are you guys looking at NBA guys, college? I mean, what kind of candidates are you looking for when it comes to that experience, stuff like that?
No, I think we're going to be very open to exploring a number of different candidates, and that will bring a number of the qualities that we look for. I don't think there's any one person probably that can check every single box that you like them to check, but we're sure we'll try to come close to that, and confident that we will find someone who will be a good fit to carry out our vision and process for this organization and this basketball team moving forward.
Yeah, one of the most important characteristics as we start to look at the kind of person that we're bringing in is that in today's NBA, the coach is not on an island by himself. The coach is part of a team that's part of the front office. And so we need to find someone that understands that the three of us are in this together. And this is a group effort. It's not an independent effort, and that we're going to approach everything as a team and as an organizational way.
At one point in time, there was this belief that New York fans in any sport wouldn't stand for a rebuild. They needed to have success every single year. Do you think that is changing? That they're able to be patient with you guys?
Yeah, I don't believe it. I disagree. So what we laid out last summer was a plan that was going to take time, and I think that's been one of our issues over the years, that we've tried to do it too quickly with quick fixes. And Scott and I travel around. We happened to go to Steelers training camp, I think, and we went to a baseball game while we were there, and we sat next to two guys who were New Yorkers, and they recognized us, and all they talked about was wanting us to be patient. Don't try to fix this quickly. Fix it the right way. And so I think, it's a misnomer that New Yorkers have to have something right away.
And I would add to that, not being from New York, but now embracing being a New Yorker, and I hope to be a New Yorker for a long time. As I've gone around the city and just been stopped by people randomly, I've overwhelmingly heard that sentiment. Hey, like what you guys are doing, stay the course, be patient, don't rush at it. We just want to see a group that's working hard to get to an end goal. And so that's been really heartwarming for me, because coming into the door, and when Steve and I met and coming to come to work with him and take this opportunity, that's important to us, because we want to follow a sustainable plan, and we know it's going to take a little time and patience, but we're going to get there, and we're confident we're going to get there.
You mentioned 10-game increments. Obviously, once Kristaps went down, there was going to be a stretch where game 40 to 50 was going to be worse than 30 to 40, whatever it was. How did you evaluate or weigh you were going to take a natural drop at some point versus something that this was alarming and it kept going on and on?
Well, we looked at, we evaluated so many aspects of our play in those 10-game increments. What kind of adjustments we made in games, what happened when we were down, what things that we did as a team. So we evaluated everything in addition to wins and losses. But this wasn't. We always said this was not going to be the evaluation of how we looked at our progress over the year wasn't necessarily going to be based on wins and losses.
Do you have a timetable for head coach?
No timetable. We're just going to obviously, get to work on that very soon. I'm sure it's a very competitive market out there, but we're going to do our due diligence and take the time necessary to find the right guy that we feel to take us on a long journey, hopefully. So.
Steve Scott, when Carmelo was here and there was somebody coaching team, executive here, our question to him was always, are you going to be involved in the process? Do you want your opinion shared with execs in the decision-making process? Now, with Kristaps, how much will you guys be in touch with him in this coaching search, and how much will you weigh his opinion on things if you do seek it out in the next hire?
One of the first things we did last night, we reached out to all our players last night, and we're inclusive that way. And so as we progress, we will stay in touch with a number of our players. But at the end of the day, it's our job to find the very, very, very best fit for this basketball team. That's what we're hired to do. We have great confidence that Kristaps, is a great player, and he's going to continue working to be that. And at the end of the day, getting to know him, that we're very confident that we'll find a coach that he will feel, and the rest of his teammates will feel that will be able to help us get to that next step and become a better basketball team. Yeah,
and I'll just add to that. Scott and I, we have a lot of things in common, but one of the things we have in common is that we are very player-centric and communicate with our players frequently and openly. So I think we always should have a pretty good sense about what our players feel and what we think they need and what we think we need from them, and how all those things reflect and play a part of who ultimately we select as the coach of this team.
So does that make you, if you're kind of looking at what players need and feel, would that help inform your decision in terms of making a change here?
No, we really made this decision as we go to every practice. I'm probably on half the road trip. Scott is on every road trip. This is about us being connected with the team, us analyzing the sort of data that's happening within the game over the course of the season, and collecting all that information and coming to a collective conclusion.
Steve, this is Scott. Do you guys want the new coach replaced by draft workouts, by the draft? I mean, is that playing into any of this?
No, we won't be, however it pans out, it's going to pan out. Again, at the end of the day, it's about getting the right fit, the right guy for this job. So if it's prior to draft workouts, if it's prior to the combine, or if it's prior to the draft or after the draft, whenever that may be, we're not going to, put a timetable on ourselves that way. We want to get the right guy. We're going to make sure that we go through a comprehensive enough process to get there.
You mentioned defense several times. Is there a certain type of offensive system or style that you're looking for in this next coach as well?
No, again, obviously the game we know now is going to a game where a lot of teams are shooting three-point shots. The pace is increased. And while obviously offense, you need to score points, obviously, to win in this game, we're going to just, again, look at the coach's complete resume and, again, and what his potential staff would bring. So we want to be a defensive-minded, tough team first that obviously is going to have to play with some pace and be able to put enough points on the board. So I'm looking forward to visiting with a number of the potential candidates to kind of hear their ideas about their offensive style of basketball.
Steve, why should we believe, like this time, and Scott, why should we believe this time it's going to work, like the hiring, and that this team is going to figure it out, the franchise is going to go forward after, a period of time here where there hasn't been success?
The only thing I can ask of our fans is that, again, we laid out a plan last year. Jim has given us the room to be patient, which, again, is not something that's been common in this organization. Patience hasn't been one of our biggest attributes here. And he's given us the room to be patient, develop players, develop a culture within the organization, and all we can ask is for, fans to look at the plan we laid out last year, and we are going to be consistent with us and judge us on that.
Steve, this
And-
I
and-
think you're sorry. Go ahead.
No, and I would just add that too. There are a few good young players here too that have some promise and potential. Obviously, we talked a lot about Kristaps, but Tim Hardaway, Frank Ntilikina. These guys have started to show some very positive signs, among others on the roster, and so we feel that with a lot of growth and development over this coming summer and future summers, that they will not only get better as individual basketball players, but help formulate a younger core group of guys. And we've got a high draft pick coming up this year. In the lottery, we also have a higher second round pick as well to add to our talent mix. And we've really created a very holistic approach in terms of how we're going about our scouting, very, very well detailed and organized. And so we're just confident in a lot of the processes that we are putting in place here that we believe that will bear fruit as we move forward.
Scott, how important is this draft, and are you looking for a certain position or just the best talented players available?
I think we're at the phase, and I know I've mentioned this before about being in that talent acquisition phase right now, and I think we got to get the best talent. I mean, internally we may think one position over another may be needed, but at this time, I think at the end of the day, we're going to try to get the very best talent we can get, depending upon where we're drafting, and be fine with that. And then as we move forward, and as you acquire enough talent and you have that talent on your roster, then you can start really honing in on, okay, this year we need a small forward, or this year we need a center, whatever the case may be.
Steve, when you're saying that your search is going to be open, is there anything that's going to be disqualifying for you when you're looking at candidates, like a lack of NBA coaching experience or fluency in analytics or whatever?
No, again, we're going to be open. I have thought about necessarily disqualifiers, but I think being in a place like New York, I'm sure a candidate's going to need enough experience in terms of at least dealing with all you guys in here. but also, having been around, whether it's wherever he's coached, but brings enough coaching experience and enough experience in terms of communicating, developing, and really have shown some sort of pattern of getting guys to buy into a vision and compete at a high level, and that teams ultimately win.
Hey Steve, this is I think your third coaching search as GM or president. What did you learn from those, and why do you think this one will be different? Can you apply some of the things that you did in the previous to this one?
Yes. One of the things that, and talking to other NBA executives, and we talked a little bit about this, there's a certain amount of openness to today's NBA. It's sort of an intellectual curiosity. Bob Myers and I talked a lot about this in terms of what it takes to be a coach in the NBA, and guys who can absorb all of the things that are different about today's games, the use of analytics, the significance of the physical training and performance staff, how you incorporate player development into sort of a holistic approach as to how you coach a team. And I think we've had guys that have had bits and pieces of that, but ultimately if you can find a guy that at least embraces it and understands what he doesn't know and how to have other people support him to bring other things in, I think those things are really important, and I hope we can find someone that again understands where they need help and where there are other parts of the organization can help make them a more complete coach. And those things are important, I think, to success in today's NBA.
Will that lead you to a guy? It sounds like you don't. That wouldn't be a veteran guy who's set in his ways. Would that lead you to a guy who is maybe less experienced and would be more open to building around what you guys want?
I mean, not necessarily. It depends, again, not to talk about candidates that come in with a long tenure of doing business a certain way. I think a lot of that will be flushed out through the interview process. And maybe there's a guy who's been around the league for a long time who generally has, learned over time to be more open to things that they weren't open in the past, or at least willing in a reflection of the staff that he wants to bring to help, bolster areas that maybe he's not as comfortable with. So we'll vet all that out during the process as we meet with each and every person. So.
You guys mentioned Jeff and Kurt. What about the rest of the guys on staff? Jerry, Corey, Howard, Dave. Are they gone, or are they still with you guys? Is that up in the air?
No, they're still with us, and they'll be with us, as we go through this whole search process. So they'll be around, working and continue with their duties commensurate with this time of year.
Because they'll be doing draft workouts, but then I guess it'll be up to the next coach.
Well, that will all be dependent upon when, once that decision or that hire is made. But they'll be around and available for draft workouts if the coach is not available, hired at that time. I'm sorry.
Did you see something that you liked during the NCAA tournament, during the coaching style that made you consider?
Pardon me?
I said, did you see something that you liked during the NCAA tournament that would make you consider?
I saw some exciting basketball during the tournament.
No,
pardon me?
Regarding the coaching
style. Well, again, not to get into to any, because we're not going to address any names or anything like that, whether it's college or pro. But again, it's going to be an open search. So, having been a former college coach myself, I always kind of keep an eye on those ranks anyway. So, we'll see.
Is there anything?
Do you think it's a deep draft?
I think that potentially, yes, it can be. And so we're hopeful that it's a deep draft. That's for sure.
Is there anything you can say about where Kristaps is in his recovery and what you're hopeful for going forward from him?
I think we mentioned when he first went down that after he got over the initial pain and shock of it all, he wanted to really attack it, and that's what he's done. We've remained in close contact with he and his camp and our therapists and the therapists that he's working with now, and so I think things are moving along at a good pace right now that everyone's comfortable with, and we'll continue to stay very closely connected with him on that, and confident, like I said to you guys a few months ago when he first got healthy, that he will come back bigger, better, stronger player. So that's the hope. I know that's his mindset as he attacks the rehab, and we have no other reason to think otherwise.
Yeah, and he's in great spirits about how the rehab is going and how he feels about his prospects of coming back. So we feel good about that as well.
With Jeff, was it the communication with the players, or was it communication with you guys that you wanted to be a little bit better?
There weren't any communication issues per se with us.
Okay.
And I think just generally as we observed the team, there were a lot of things that we just thought we could be better at, from attention to detail to player accountability. And Jeff did a good job in some areas. In some areas he could have done a little bit better job. And we just thought there was an opportunity, again, to get someone who really fit where we wanted to be 3 to 5 years from now.
Steve, you mentioned how Jim kind of given you more room to be patient now going forward, and I feel like that's something that's been said by other people in this position for a few years now, coming and entering new coaching search. So what gives you the confidence that that won't be reversed anytime soon, and why should New Yorkers feel that way? Makes sense.
Well, I've known Jim for a long time, and he's been very clear for me when I agreed to stay on and take this job that he would give us the room to operate and to do the things that we thought were important. I think his commitment, from a financial resource that he's given us to player development are indicators of how important he thinks a long-term growth process is for how we do things. So I don't have any doubt that he's comfortable with the plan we're on and wants us to be patient and not do things that are just, for the quick hit.
What would you say are some realistic goals as you look at this upcoming season next year?
Just want to improve and get better. again, not to put any numbers of wins and losses on it, but we want to get better. We want to get more consistent defensively. We want to get to where we're, becoming a team that's winning the 50-50 ball battle, like I like to say a lot of times. We want to continue to get better at showing more discipline on both sides of the floor, both offensively and defensively. And I think, I'm confident that that some of our younger players will come back more confident and improved as players, and that will be willing. And I think that will showcase itself next season.
Where are you guys with Kristaps in terms of his contract situation? Obviously this summer, there's a chance to do something. Is it more prudent to be patient on that, or where do you guys stand there?
We're not going to talk about Kristaps' contract situation sort of at this point.
What factored into the decision to inform Jeff last night, and maybe have him participate in the exit meetings or anything like that? I mean, what factored?
We actually were trying to do, there's obviously a dilemma as to what you do, and we're trying to be as thoughtful and humane as we possibly could be. And so, once we've come to a conclusion, the choices were, after we get off the plane, tell Jeff to come by my apartment, or I'll go to his apartment, or show up here tomorrow morning, and we'll have a meeting. So then he's, what's coming? So we had a conference room available at the plane. We thought the fairest thing to Jeff was to bring him up, tell him what we had decided, how we came to the decision, get feedback from him, and thank him. And then we immediately got on the phone to talk to Kurt to inform him as well. We just thought that was the best way to handle it.
What is your take on the job Jeff did with Frank? Were you satisfied on and all with how he used Frank this year?
We were very, very happy with Frank's development, and Frank did a good job. He started to grow at the end of the season. Frank was a guy having missed most of all of the preseason, missed summer league, was available to play in 95% of our games this year. We think he started to build up his confidence as a defensive player, and we started to see his offense get more confident as we went through the season. So we were very happy with his development this year.
Do you like how Jeff used him this year?
Well, how Jeff was used how Frank was used as a function of how the team was playing. One of the things we were consistent with Jeff this whole entire season was we never told him who he had to play. And so we let Jeff have the freedom to use Frank as he saw fit, and we thought it was good that we got to a point where Frank could evolve and we could play in sort of a multi-guard front where Frank could be a little bit off the ball, be on the ball, but just play basketball as a guard.
You know what I mean? Kind of talk to executives around the league about this, talk to hires. How are you going about having a philosophy on coaching hires, and just who else have you talked to and trying to figure out what you're looking for and what makes a good coach?
Well, I think we laid out a lot. We talked to, Scott and I have been around the league for a long time. We talked to people in the NFL. We talked to people in Major League Baseball. We talked to other NBA executives about coaching searches, what they think good culture and chemistry with their team is. But I think we've laid out the things. It has to be someone that understands today's player. And today's player is very different from yesterday's player. So you have to be a person that understands who these guys are, where they come from, what their basketball journey is, understand the complexity of today's NBA game from an analytics standpoint, from a physical development standpoint, from a player development standpoint. So a good coach is willing to embrace all those things.
I know you don't mention any names, but because of your relationship, there's always been a curiosity and speculation about Coach Blatt. Are you interested in seeing if he wants to come back to the NBA?
Like I said, we're not going to talk about any particular names at this point.
Steve, do you feel like there's quality candidates out there, though? You feel there's good coaches out there that you're going to be chasing?
Absolutely.
With Joe Keem, Jeff and Joe had that incident, and then Joe went away, and that was kind of a mutual thing. Is there a possibility with the next guy or woman that you bring in, that coach has a good relationship or is open to bringing Joe back? Is there a possibility for that to happen?
We're going to visit the Joe Kim situation again as we go through the off season, and we won't take any options off the table for that matter. But I think obviously you guys know the decision was made. It was a mutual decision made by both us and Joe Kim to be away for the rest of the season. But as we move forward, like I said, through the summer. There's a number of options as it comes to dealing with Joe Kim, and so we won't take any of those options off the table.
You got a couple-year-old free agent.
Pardon me?
Was Joe Kim one of, you said you notified all the players, was Joe Kim one of them that you told him when you got in contact with all the players last night? Was he one of them you contacted?
I had not, but I will.
You got a couple-year-old free agents this summer, specifically Beasley, probably Kyle. Do you want to bring those guys back?
Pardon me?
Kyle and Michael. Would you like to bring those two guys back?
We're going to visit all that. Obviously Kyle O'Quinn had a tremendous year for us this year and played very hard. He's a New Yorker, represents a lot about, what we want to stand for. So we'd like to bring him back. And then obviously we'll be in contact and visitation with Michael Beasley's camp to see where that takes us.
Why should Knicks fans be optimistic about what's going to happen next year?
Well, I think we've addressed a lot of that earlier here today.
Well, you've asked them to be patient. Why should they be optimistic?
Right, well, we're optimistic because I think we got some good young players here who have a chance to develop. I think we have a lot of assets in front of us, starting with the draft coming up this year. We have a high lottery pick. We have a fairly high second-round pick. We have all of our draft picks moving forward in years to come. That allows us a great amount of flexibility, not only to draft future players, but also to either move players, acquire more players with those picks. So that's the when you're trying to build, you want to have all of those resources available to you. And fortunately for us, we have those in existence right now. And so that's another reason to be very optimistic that in being patient, and letting us being able to utilize those assets over the next few years, that we can build and grow a team that can be successful here.
Yeah, and I'd just add to that, we unfortunately KP got hurt, but we had a young all-star center or power forward, whatever position you want to describe him as part of the future of our franchise. We have Tim Hardaway Jr. had the best year of his career as a young guard or wing player in this league. We have, Scott and I talk about this. One of the things in this league is that if a player is going to be successful, he has to have something that he can hang his hat on. And we have the second youngest player in the NBA that can walk out on the floor today and feel like he can guard any perimeter player that he's going to play against. So those are things that, and we have all of our draft picks moving forward. From a developmental standpoint, we don't talk much about our G League team. Our G League team ended up being the best team in the Eastern Conference last year. We had our 5 starters from the G League all play in the NBA this year. I don't think there are many teams that can say that. So from a developmental standpoint, we think we have a lot to look forward. Then plus we have all the assets that every draft pick moving forward. So I think there are a lot of reasons for people to be optimistic about where we're going.
Could you define, I know at the beginning of the season you talked a lot about having a culture of accountability, and that seemed pretty clear what you were talking about as you kind of moved out of the Phil Jackson era. But going into this next season, it kind of keeps coming up. What does that mean? Does that mean no altercations in practice, and what does that mean for a less dramatic game?
What it means is that everyone is honest with each other, and we're very clear with what our expectations are from a management standpoint to our coaching staff and to our players. Our coaches are very clear about what the expectations are to the players, and we hold each other to task as we're following through with that the players understand what their obligations and responsibilities to the organization are, and that collectively we believe in it and we live it and we hold each other to it. And that's something that we believe in, and we communicate that, and that's going to be part of who we are.
You talk about the Westchester Knicks and the success. Is a G League coach on the table, a Mike Miller, who led this team, who coached those players that you spoke about that are on the big team?
Like we said, we're not going to talk about who the candidates for the job are. We do think Mike was coach of the year in the G League. Mike did a tremendous job this season in the G League.
a big part of you guys from the first press conference was stability, and now you're getting another coach. How much does that hurt that particular goal? That you're going to a new year, you're gonna have to start basically all over again.
No, I wouldn't say that we have to start all over again, and I don't think that I think what we're trying to do again, we just recognize after going through this first year the need for a new voice, a new connection, a new leadership, but that this is an opportunity for us to gain that stability that you're alluding to in this next hire that we make.
Even not having to do with coaching, you actually brought up an interesting point with Kristaps. Do you guys see him ultimately going forward as a power forward or as a center, and how does that kind of impact the way you guys look at personnel moves, if at all?
Again, we're in a era of the NBA. I don't want to call it positionless basketball, but an era where the ability for guys to play multiple positions is key and important. And I think the more of those guys you can have on your team, the better. And so wherever he lands, I think right now, naturally, he fits well at power forward because he's comfortable there from not only a skill standpoint, but a strength standpoint. And so we'll see moving forward as we continue to add to this team. I think that will flush itself out, as we continue to add the talent to this group.
Do you plan on looking at anything with Kristaps in terms of management of his body and how tired he gets, or weight on muscles and all that kind of stuff? And you plan on addressing that or changing anything or looking at anything differently?
We'll have a complete plan for Kristaps, and we'll stay connected with him. We'll have each one of our players. We'll have a plan for everything we should do to maximize their potential, both on the court and physically, over the summer, and that'll be part of our discussions with Kristaps, because we all have the same desire. He wants to play as many games as he possibly can, be as strong as he can, and as effective. And we're both in sync as it relates to that, so we'll work together to get there.
Steve, is it within the realm of possibility that Kristaps would not play at all next year? Say the team is struggling in January or something, could you conceive where he might sit out the whole year?
We haven't even thought about that.
Steve, just last question. How did Jeff take the news? I mean, after you sat down and explained the reasons.
I don't think it was a complete shock to Jeff. I mean, we actually had a meeting with Jeff 2 weeks ago to review, where we started in the beginning of the season, strengths and weaknesses, where we thought things went well, where we thought things didn't go so well, and Jeff was open with us. There were areas where he thought they had improved, but he also was open with us about areas that he thought there could have been more improvement. So we had a conversation, 2 or 3 weeks ago that went through the whole thing with Jeff. So, Jeff is a positive person, and I think he was hopeful that there would be another, an opportunity. But he's a pro. He's a good man, and he took it well. And like I said, we wish him the best moving forward.
Your decision wasn't made for that meeting, and if so, then something over the last 2 or 3 weeks changed it?
No, we just reviewed where we were and what our thoughts on what we had seen.
Was there ever thought of doing it in season?
No.
There was a time this year when he was questioning certain players' effort and challenged them at times to play with pride. I mean, how frustrating was it to watch that and to see that maybe some players weren't giving max effort at times during the year?
I mean, it's always, we want everyone to give the max effort, and when we think they're players that aren't giving everything, we talk to Jeff or we'll talk to the player directly, and that's part of the communication, honest communication of what our expectations are and what it means to be in our locker room and on our team. So sure, it's frustrating when guys don't give it all the time, and we have to. And our job as a coach and our job as managers, how do we get it from them?
So you thought that the roster was capable of more defensively or effort? What did you not see out there that you wanted to see?
No. Again, it's just as you evaluate over the time. Could we have been a little better in situational basketball? Probably so. Could we have been a little more consistent in terms of just offensive, defensive execution? Again, we know the roster's not complete. We understand our roster as well as anybody. But again, the terms of consistency and then a trend, I would say, towards consistency. I just thought Steve and I thought we fell a little bit short in that area.
Craig, you mentioned that how collaborative things are with the G League and with you guys. I'm just curious, how much of a voice does he have in this process to find the next head coach? And the other side also, the decision-making tree. I think Steve, back in July, you were saying every suggestion will come to me and I'll sign off on it. Is that still the case as you guys have worked through your first season together? Is that how things have flowed?
I mean, well, we work very closely together. There's never been a situation where Scott has to come to me get approval on something. We work in tandem, and like I said, I give Scott the flexibility to come up with ideas and concepts and what he thinks is best for the basketball part of the organization, and we work on it together.
Yeah, but we've done that every day. So we work right next to one another. So it's been real pleasant from my vantage point. I think from Steve's too, that our communication is always very open, and that we're in this thing together. And we said that from the very beginning, and it's going to continue to be that way as long as we're here. And so I'm looking forward to that and continue to grow and blossom, really.
The way you guys approach with Craig, will he, will his voice be heard in the process, or is it kind of separate because he's more of a G League guy? How does that?
Well, Scott and I are going through this process, and we will listen and we'll talk to people within the organization about how we're getting to candidates and what we're thinking about. And at the end of the day, Craig is part of our developmental process for both the G League and will be part of it for the NBA team as well. So that'll be a part of it, not necessarily that he has a voice in who we hire. At the end of the day, Scott and I are going to have to be the ones that are comfortable with who we hire.
Yeah, and look, part of going through this process is utilizing resources that you have in your building. And so in terms of when you start to go out and vet a number of different coaches, you may have people in your building that have some either personal knowledge or friends of theirs that have knowledge, and you acquire information. So we'll utilize that information, but again, ultimately that's going to be Steve and I's decision on who we're going to hire to be the next coach here.
Steve and Scott, the way you guys approach, bringing in the coaches, I mean, I imagine that you have a list of guys that you like. Is this a case where someone can come in and blow you away, or is it sort of like we have more guys in mind? How wide open is it, and how do you guys approach it?
I look at it as an open process. I really do. I think a lot of my decisions in my own life, personal life and professionally, that's what I tend to do, and I think that's the healthiest way to go about it. And we'll see how that plays out, but I'm confident that it'll work in an effective manner.
We're going to take 2 more questions. Have you begun contacting candidates yet?
Well, this morning we started getting calls.
Right.
So we have not talked to the official candidates yet, but we're getting calls from representations. And I'm sure I left my phone in my office. I probably have about 20 of them when I get back in there. So.
Do you think there's guys that want to come to the Knicks and coach this team, Steve?
We know there are.
Yes. No.
Based on what?
But I mean, it's been a difficult stretch where it may look like the way we see it, which is, it's been very frustrating for the fans. And
again, as someone newer to New York, and as a former coach, and I coached in college, but I obviously know a lot of the coaches in the pro ranks. This I think is a very desirable place and job, and I think that a lot of candidates will see and understand the vision that we have, the type of people that we are, in conjunction with the city of New York and the historical significance of the New York Knicks. That this will be an attractive job for a lot of coaches, and there will be a lot of interest in this job.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.